All right, today we're looking at 8-3 special right triangles. We already did this. We did it about a week and a half ago now or so in class for the 45, 45, 90. We started by looking at a square and then drawing a diagonal into the square, showing that we create a 45, 45, 90 that way. And we also create, well, then it's a right triangle. So in a 45, 45, 90 triangle, the legs L are congruent. That is because in a 45, 45, 90 triangle, you have an isosceles triangle, and two sides of an isosceles triangle have to be congruent. And the length of the hypotenuse H, this is the long side, the side across from the right angle, must be the square root of 2 times the length of a leg. We showed this to be true. We didn't prove it, but we showed it to be true by using a bunch of different right triangles, a bunch of 45, 45, 90 triangles in class. So if we're going from a leg to the hypotenuse, we multiply by root 2. If we are going from the hypotenuse to a leg, we would then divide by root 2. We've talked a lot about how multiplying and dividing are called inverse functions of each other. They undo each other. All right. The second kind of triangle we have is a 30, 60, 90 triangle. In a 30, 60, 90 triangle, the length of the hypotenuse H is 2 times the length of the shorter leg S, and the length of the longer leg L is root 3 times the length of the shorter leg. So here we will almost always start with the short leg. That is across from the 30-degree angle, right? So we have our smallest angle. Across from it must be our shortest side. Typically, we're going to start there or we're going to go through there. So to get to the hypotenuse, to go from here to our longest side, we are going to multiply by 2. If we needed to go from the hypotenuse to the short side, we would divide by 2. Right? To go from the short side to the longer of the two sides, we're going to multiply by the square root of 3. If we needed to come back, we would divide by square root of 3. Right? I don't know if drawing that extra stuff in will be helpful. Just trying to show you kind of how it goes, right? So all we're going to do is look at a few examples today. Again, we already have done some examples. We already did explore this a little bit. So it shouldn't be too new as long as you haven't missed too many days of class. All right, so in example 1, we have a triangle. It has a 45-degree angle and a 90-degree angle. That means its remaining angle must be 45. That makes this a 45, 45, 90. It doesn't ask for it, but the length of the side over here must be 14 because these two angles are 45 in the same triangle. That makes it isosceles. The opposite sides of those two angles must be congruent. Now, to find x from our theorem, we know that we're going to go from one of the legs to x. We're going to multiply by root 2. So x equals 14 root 2. Notice that for now, if you forget that, you could use the Pythagorean theorem, that you know the two sides. The two sides are 14 and 14. And we're looking for x, the hypotenuse. And that would be 14 squared plus 14 squared. Which is 392. And if you take the square root and simplify both sides, you get x is 14 root 2. All right. I think knowing the formula is probably easier, but if you get to a quiz or a test and you just blank a little bit, for the most part, you can still use the Pythagorean theorem. All right, number 2. This time we are going from the hypotenuse to a leg, right? We're going from the longest side to a shorter side. And this time then we divide by the square root of 2. So we get x equals 45 divided by the square root of 2. I can't remember if we talked about this much in class. We did work with simplifying radicals, but I don't know that we talked about radicals in a fraction. We are not allowed to have a fraction or a radical, a square root of 2 in the denominator. So we need to get rid of it. To do that, we multiply the expression by root 2 over root 2. This is 1, right? We're multiplying the expression by 1. If you multiply something by 1, you're not changing its value. And we get 45 square root of 2 over root 2 times root 2 is 2. All right, again, it is possible to use Pythagorean theorem here. You would have x squared plus x squared equals 45 squared. You would solve and then come back and simplify. Just as a note, I would expect you to have it with a radical if it's necessary. So 14 root 2, not the decimal of 14 root 2. All right? So I do expect the exact answer when we're dealing with 45, 45, 90s and 30, 60, 90s. All right, take a moment, pause the video, write this one down, and solve it. Once you have it, press play. Hopefully that's now. We're going from a leg to the hypotenuse, so we're multiplying by root 2, so we get 22 root 2, and that's all. All right, copy these two examples down and solve them. So copy them down, press pause, solve them, and then press play. All right, so the first one, again, 45, 45, 90. We're going from the hypotenuse of 210 to a shorter side of x. Right? So x is going to be equal to 210 divided by root 2. We talked about this on one of the last slides. We can't have a root 2 in the denominator, so we're going to multiply the expression by 1. We're just going to do it in a special way where we're doing root 2 over root 2. A number over itself is always 1. This gives us 210 root 2 over the square root of 2 times the square root of 2. You can think about this different ways. That's the square root of 4. Or if you take a square root of a number times itself, the square root of itself, then we get the number itself, so we have 2. 210 divided by 2 is 105. So our answer is 105 root 2. Again, hopefully you have number 5 done as well. Again, 45, 45, 90, this time going to the hypotenuse. So we just multiply by the square root of 2. And number 6 then, we're going from a leg, that's one of the shorter parts, to the hypotenuse. So we are multiplying by the square root of 2. That's a times square root of 2, not x root 2. So times the square root of 2. That kind of works with what we're doing here. So we have x is 5 root 2 times root 2. A square root of 2 times a square root of 2 is 2. So this is 5 times 2, which is 10. All right. If I didn't mention on a different slide, I think I did mention in class that the reason that these are special right triangles is because we can solve them off of just one of the sides, whereas for the most part before this we needed 2 parts, 2 sides. All right, some 30, 60, 90s. Okay, so the first part that you're always going to ask yourself is, what is the short leg, long leg, and hypotenuse, right? So the short leg is across from the smallest angle, which is 30. We know that this angle is 60. So the long leg, not the longest side, but the long leg is y, and our hypotenuse is x. So going back to the 2 theorems here, from the short side to the hypotenuse, we are going to multiply by 2. right? So x is 9 times 2, which is 18. And to go from the short side to the long side, we multiply by square root of 3. And that is it. Something you might get a little bit confused or forgotten on, if we ever get to the point where you're supposed to have these memorized, you should try to have them memorized. With the way that classes will go, likely you will have a note sheet whenever you need it, until maybe not on the final. The way that you would remember it or help remember it is that in a 30, 60, 90, right, these are all multiples on 3, with the 3 in the 30, right, is the one that the square root of 3 comes up on. For the 45, 45, 90, you have 45 happening twice, so it's with the square root of 2, rather. So once you kind of get it, once you kind of have some reason to remember it's a square root of 2 in a 45, 45, 90, and a square root of 3 in a 30, 60, 90, that can be very helpful. All right, the next one, we know that the missing angle here is 30, which means that y is the shortest side across from our 90-degree angle is 4 root 3. That makes it the hypotenuse. To go from the hypotenuse to the short side, we divide by 2, right? Because the hypotenuse is twice the short side, so the short side must be half the hypotenuse. So we get that y is 4 root 3 divided by 2, which is also known as 2 root 3. You should simplify that. You should not leave it as 4 root 3 over 2. And then for x, we are going to multiply by root 3 because we're going to the long side, so we multiply by the square root of 3. So x is 2 root 3 times the square root of 3, which gives us 2 times 3 because root 3 times root 3 is 3. And we get x is 6. All right, copy these two down and try to solve them on your own. Again, press pause and do that on your own. All right, so we have a 30, 60, 90. In this one, the 20 comes across from the shortest, the smallest angle, so 20 is the shortest side, and y is the hypotenuse, so y is twice of 20, 2 times 20, which means it's 40, and x is 20 times root 3. And number 10, 98 is the hypotenuse. The shortest side is x, so to go from the hypotenuse to x, we're going to divide by 2. So x is 98 over 2, 45, 49. And then to go from there to the longer leg, we multiply by root 3. And we get 49 root 3. One thing to note, you do not need to go in alphabetical order. You don't have to do x and then y. Do whichever one makes more sense. In number 9, I think it made more sense to find y first. Though it didn't matter, they didn't use each other. But it doesn't matter what order you find them in. All right. Homework is on page 562. It's numbers 1 through 6 and 8 through 13. This is due tonight. If you need help on it, I will be on Zoom at 2:30 for your class today. Information on that you can find in the instructions page on the module for the class for March 23rd. Likely I will be moving those times for Zoom to the morning starting tomorrow. That's to help break up my day better so I can be a little bit more productive. So likely that's going to get moved to the morning. If you need help in the afternoon after that, you would just let me know and I will get on and help you because I do have that ability throughout the day to help you as an individual. This would be more as a class, though none of your class has ever taken advantage of it in the 3 days that they've had. So it is there. And a few other things just as note, we will need to have a quiz here. I was hoping to wait until we got back, but then with the over week extension, and who knows if that's actually going to be where it ends or not. With that extension, we're going to need to take some quizzes here. Don't know exactly what it's going to look like. This is going to be quiz 8.1 to 8.3. I'll give you more information on it tomorrow. This is going to be on Wednesday. Tomorrow we'll have a review assignment, so I don't plan to post another video tomorrow, just the review assignment for 8.1 to 8.3. In the meantime, you should be checking your old assignments. I think I may only have one posted, but I plan to get the rest of them up today so you can check them. Tomorrow then, you should be going through and grading for your actual correctness and making sure that you got everything right. I do grade on correctness, but it's hard to give the actual feedback on what you got wrong. Just takes too much time. So you should be checking that part. You'll be getting grades on it. You'll see. This up here is your attendance as well. So if you don't do it before 8 p.m. tonight, you're going to get marked absent for the class. So make sure that you get that in. Do at 8, Zoom at 2:30, quiz 8.1 to 8.3 on Wednesday. Tomorrow will just be a review assignment. Again, don't plan to post a video for that, but you'll be able to get on Zoom. Again, I think it'll be in the morning tomorrow, but if you have questions at any other time, you'll be able to ask them.